Hello and welcome to this. This is a video by Shaun called "Abolish the Monarchy," and yet I'm not really a lover of monarchies either. So I'm gonna go ahead and watch it.
Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the British monarchy and
Oh
why I think it should be abolished.
yeah.
That's right, I want to fire the Queen and him and all the little
Oh.
children royals as well. They're all fired. Pack up your things. So,
Well, now of course there's one thing. Of course, do you want them to keep the money they have now, or just stop earning the money that they are? Because right now, they have a lot of wealth. So that would be a massive influx. Right now, England is obviously, had, well, stuff. And, an influx of wealth might do certain things.
so long your services are no longer required, sort of thing. So, I guess I should make my case for that opinion, and it's a rather
I mean, you can always just do the French Revolution type thing where you just chop their heads off, or the Russian Revolution thing where you kill. Basically, I'm saying is monarchies are best murdered. No, I shouldn't say that. That's no. I'm just saying, if they don't step aside, you can always use that. I'm not saying you should ask them to step aside first. It's just that sometimes it's like a dictator or somebody's got a very large following, they'll tend to return if they have support. You know. So how do you force them out of power if you're not the government? And the Conservative government, it wants them in power, and all these things. So it's like, well,
rather simple
well,
one.
as far as I know, maybe the Conservative government don't want them in power if they start saying, yeah, that's a bit psychotic, actually, Conservatives. Who knows, but
To be honest. I don't like hereditary hierarchies.
yeah,
I don't think it's right that
good.
someone should be born into a position of power over other people. Now, you might
Mm.
say, well, the royals don't actually have any real political power anymore, and this is
No, they do though. Now, obviously, do they exercise their political power? No, they don't. For example, I'm pretty sure that if the Queen was shown a document that basically said, "We're gonna take all the migrants," then I don't know, I'm doing American, and then we're going to ship them all off to Rwanda. I'm pretty sure she should just say no to signing that. But
this is kind of true
yeah.
to an extent, but they
Yeah.
still inherit at birth a position of enormous privilege and wealth. And this
Yeah,
is
but
a
more specifically, like the Queen, while the rest of the royal family, and even so, the rest of the royal family can still technically put pressure on things because they're like, oh well, all these things. They can still have power, indirectly. It's like a boss saying, "Oh, do this," or you're fired, kind of attitude. It's like, yeah, sure, they can't, you know, have you executed, but like but there's still a hidden power there, that I think. But yeah, basically the royal family, the Queen is allowed to write off on documents, just say nope, I will not support this, or I will support this, and that's just to have a balance. So that you're like, oh well, that way we don't have just a Nazi getting into power and just saying, well, we're gonna have this document, and the Queen being like, yeah, I want that. Of course, there is a problem, which is, let's say a document it wants to abolish the monarchy, then, well, you know, basically how I put this is this: ultimately, there are a lot of countries that have this, where they've got a head of state who's different from the head of government. Unfortunately, certain countries like America, they don't have that. The president has all the power, and it's also a head of state, right? I believe that's so. So you know what I mean. It's an issue. So like for example, in my country, you have a thing where you would have a president, and you'd have a you know Taoiseach, or that would be like a prime minister. So you've got a separation, but they're both elected. You know, basically, it's just to be more. Nice.
In a country where the Conservatives' austerity politics have led to continued increases in food bank usage, cuts to child welfare have led to an increase in the number of children living in poverty, and so on. And it is completely
Yeah.
indefensible to me that one child could be born into a manufactured poverty while another could be born into the wealthy royal family.
Yeah.
Now, one of the ways the
Yeah, and inheritance is not always a good thing. I think to a certain level, you can inherit, sure, but after a certain amount of money, it just gets dodgy because it's like basically if you can inherit the minute you come out your fair share of the world money pot. I think that's fair. Once you start going over that, though, at that point it's like, no, that's not okay. That's not okay at all because I think ultimately at some point you have to think, well, you are stealing if you earn over a certain amount of money. If you have a certain amount of money in the bank. So, if you die or give that away to a person, surely that person is then taking stolen money, and that's my point. Like the royal family is an exact example of someone who has stolen the money and not even like they had a very high salary in a corporation which you know has very high prices, so and so on, so that way, like, kind of indirectly. It's directly they literally, a lot of the wealth comes from theft, from other countries, so that kind of thing. But the point I'm making ultimately is that I think inheritance is not necessarily an inherent problem, but however I think there should be a cap, like maybe like a tax brackets, like let's say 40% for the first 300,000, and over that it's 100%. The government just takes everything off you after that. I think that might be a good policy. Obviously you'd want it to be very, very enforced. You don't want these kind of policies to be like, oh, this is the policy. Is it not enforced for the majority of rich people? Yes, yeah. It is. Yeah, corruption is just rampant in many countries. Anyway.
the royals do still have some political power is
Yeah.
via the Queen's speeches, such as the state opening of Parliament, in
Yeah.
which she reads a statement outlining government policy.
My ministers will continue to bring the public finances under control so that Britain lives within its means, and to move to a higher wage and lower welfare economy where work is rewarded.
That's a clip from the state opening of Parliament.
Where work is rewarded. I think work should not be the one thing that's being rewarded. I think it's a thing that, should let you live. Like, there shouldn't be a need for welfare, except there is, thanks to the Conservative government. That's sort of the point. Now, obviously, there are certain people who obviously can't do certain jobs. Now, could they do other jobs? Yes, but unfortunately, those jobs aren't available. It's the old mantra of, like, you have jobs. And then you're like, but I can't get those jobs. Why can't you get your job? No, I can't. Like, if I go to apply for this, they would laugh at me. I can't get a job as a doctor if I'm not qualified. They're not gonna be like, well, yes, we need to reduce unemployment, so here you are. Here's your doctorship. Oh, you killed someone. My God, why did you do that? Well, maybe it's because I'm not qualified. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, this is why. Okay?
Of 2016 there, where the Queen read out a pro-austerity speech while sitting on a golden throne and wearing a hat with 2,900 precious gems in it, including one of the largest diamonds in the world. Now, nobody wearing this hat should be able to say Britain should have to live within its means without getting sucked into an irony black hole.
Yeah, true, yeah. It is a thing where it's like, well, obviously we can't all be comfortable when there are billionaires and millionaires in this world. You just can't. It's just a fact. You cannot be comfortable in this world. It's like that.
The royals are wealthy and privileged not because of anything they've done to earn it, but because they were born into it at the expense of others, and this is wrong. Now, Okay, if you're a regular viewer of my channel, I'm probably preaching to the choir here. You're probably on board with me being outraged about the country having to bear the enormous cost of this one particular family who did nothing whatsoever to earn it. Well, this video is not really aimed at you, I'm sorry to say. This video is aimed at people who, when I mentioned the enormous cost of the royal family, scrolled down to the comment box and started typing, actually, I think you'll find the royals bring in more money than they cost us.
That's literally impossible. The royals have a bunch of stolen wealth, meaning, are you saying you bring in more money than you stole from other? How does that work? Well, in the pot, we have $1 trillion, and outside the pot, from what we stole, we have $10 trillion. How can you bring in more money than you stole? You stole it. You physically took it. So those countries almost collapsed because you did that. There was famines because you did that. There is massive death because you did. So I don't know how exactly. How are these countries not having famines now? If suddenly they're bringing in more money than you can't, because things a bit dodgy there.
Yeah, there are benefits to the economy, it turns out. Haven't you seen that CGP Grey video?
Yeah, interestingly, the CGP Grey video is from many years ago. Maybe they've changed their minds now because they are, since they're very wrong.
The true cost of the royal family explained. It's really interesting. You should check it out. This video, this is what I want to talk about today. Now, before we get into it, I just want to state that I'm not attacking old CGP Grey here. Often on my YouTube channel,
3.6 million. Yeah, you wouldn't want to attack them.
Talk about Nazis and alt-righters and fascists and racists. And I just want to make a note here to say CGP Grey is, to the best of my knowledge anyway, not that.
Me too, to the best of my knowledge. I have disagreed over certain things, such as their views on monetization, all these things like that. But, point is, as far as I peruse their content, and it appears to be not Nazi-like, not, like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there'll be a video there, but, all I know is as far as I know, so yeah.
I've in the past enjoyed several of his videos, and I've often shared his video on gerrymandering in particular, which is a really useful, easy to follow visual explanation. And I'd actually encourage you all to give it a look, so I'll link it.
I believe they're American, are they? Gerrymandering in America is interesting because the Republicans and the Democrats both take advantage of it because they're both right wing, obviously. But because they're both right wing, it means that sometimes you have these things where people will be like, oh, they'll be like Republican but kind of stupid, and they'll be against something they don't know what they're doing, unaware the Republicans are also doing it. So we're like, they gerrymander. It's like, I think the Republicans gerrymander too. No, you know what I mean? It's kind of thing. Anyway, all I'm saying is maybe America should have a third party. That's actually left wing, because it just appears to be kind of miserable to me. Like, people are calling the Democratic Party left wing. It's just like, ooh, you think the Democrats are left wing? Wow. My God.
Link it below. So why am I responding to this video today? Well, the fake answer is that it's got 4.5 million views, it's the top hit on YouTube if you search for royal family cost, and it's spreading a bunch of easily disprovable lies and oversimplifications. The true reason, though, is that back in my pre-YouTube days, when I was reduced to arguing unseen on dying internet debate forums, any mention of the cost of the monarchy would inevitably see someone post this video, and then we'd all have to argue about whether it was right or wrong all over again.
So, yeah, and let me get this right. You're going to post a video from an American about the cost of the royal family. Now, I'm not going to say because I'm going to react to an English person's video, because I'm not going to say, as, someone who isn't English, obviously, technically, you could argue someone who's from Scotland, Wales, Ireland could technically fall into that argument because they were underneath the royal family. Well, actually, pretty much anyone in the empire could argue that, because like, well, we were underneath the royal family, so why they're not underneath anymore, it's, but anyway, point I'm making is that I'm going to direct to a new person, because I'm not going to say the true cost of the royal family myself, because I'm not English. They're not my queen, so the point I'm making is that ultimately, I'm not going to make a comment on that. I think monarchies are bad in general. I think you shouldn't have monarchies, but that's monarchies in general. That's not necessarily cost them. I just think just get rid of them.
Again. These days, though, I have a YouTube channel and a platform, and I'm going to use it self-servingly to get the last word in.
8,000.
And retroactively win all of those arguments.
887.
I'm in mad scientist mode here,
Pretty
full
good.
disclosure. They'll see, they'll all see, and all that.
Back to the present day, let's compare the profits and losses by using a tenner to represent £10 million. The cost to maintain the royal family today is £40 million per year, but the revenue paid to the UK from the royal lands is £200 million per year.
Yeah. The royal lands? How about you just take the lands? They don't belong to the royal family because they, got them. They belong to the royal family because they took them. So what you could do is you could take all that and you could just keep it in the government's hands, and that way the government could actually build things like social housing on it and all these things, and they could charge like low rents because this would be basically free land that they'd be getting, that sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like you could do that. So that's not a good argument.
200 million in revenue, subtract 40 million in salary costs equals 160 million pounds in
Okay, but why have 40 million salary costs? Like, I don't, like, what's the argument here? Oh, we should keep the salary at 40 million because they bring in more. Like, no, like, you do understand. Like, imagine I'm an employee. You can earn millions for a corporation, right? I could be earning minimum wage and earning millions for a corporation. Millions. Do you understand? Like, I could literally be earning millions for a corporation. Guess what, though? I don't get paid a massive amount of profits because guess what? They don't care. They want the money. They don't want to give the money away. They'll only give me an increase if I'm doing a specific skill, which is really, really necessary to this thing, and I can't be replaced very easily. Or if I'm like well unionized. But if I'm not well unionized, then they're just like, we can replace you in the morning with somebody else who'll also earn us millions, possibly more. You're not special. You just earn us millions. That's how this works.
Profit. That's right. The United Kingdom earns £160 million in profit every year from the royal family.
So then, first off here, I'd like to admit a bit of bias. Even if these numbers were remotely true, I'd still support abolishing the monarchy, such as my disdain for hereditary positions of power.
But also, it doesn't matter. Even if they were true, it doesn't really matter because making money from the royal family, well, interestingly in England's history, they used mental asylums as like places where you look at people and laugh at them, and you'd pay money to enter. Yeah, I know it's a defect of history in England, but the point I'm making is that ultimately England doesn't have a good history when it comes to how would I put this? Not necessarily taking people, imprisoning them, and then getting people to pay them to look at the imprisoned people. I'm just saying, if you wanted to, you could do that.
Of power. Luckily for me, though, they're not remotely true.
Yeah.
There are massive problems on both sides of this equation. Let's start with the, quote, salary cost of the royal family, which CGP Grey puts at £40 million. And I should note here that this video came out in 2011, prior to the Sovereign Grant Act, which reformed the way the monarchy is paid by the government. These days, they're paid a percentage of the revenues from the Crown Estate. The Sovereign Grant for the last year was 76.1 million.
Oh.
So they've had quite the increase in the last few years. But since CGP Grey uses the 40 million figure, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Now, the problem is, this salary cost is only a fraction of the actual cost of the monarchy. CGP Grey fails to include lots of other costs that are separate to any money that is paid directly to the Queen, such as security costs.
Yeah.
If the royals travel somewhere, they do so with a security detail, and this is paid for by the state.
One thing for the security detail is that you would still probably have to have that if that was a head of state. Obviously, you wouldn't have to have that for the family of the head of state. Probably, although, who knows. Psychopaths do kill head of state's family sometimes, and they're just like, well, I can't kill you, but, like, your family's right there, so, like, what am I gonna do? Like, it's like, obviously you don't need to like protect the Queen's replacement. You wouldn't need to protect anybody else, because everybody else would be gone.
Security costs for big events like Prince Harry's wedding to Meghan Markle earlier this year run into the millions, and that's all paid for by the taxpayer.
Interestingly, they were against Harry and Meghan Markle, and it's just like, how can you be against people marrying the royal family and all this stuff, all this racism? You're like, but you still want the royal family? What? They're literally leaving the royal family. So your argument is what? My gripe with the Harry and Meghan is the fact that they took wealth with them. I think they shouldn't have any wealth. But but no, their problems is babies, and you can't make him it's like, just God, and like the British royal family people are just, people who are obsessed with royal family are just fucking weird.
The travel costs themselves are also not mentioned. If the royals go and visit somewhere to cut a ribbon or whatever, the costs for the trip fall on the local government of wherever they went. The refurbishment of royal properties is not mentioned. Buckingham Palace's ongoing renovation is estimated to cost £369 million, and is the justification given for the recent large increase in the sovereign grant. So since...
Also, the Queen used her own personal wealth to pay off Prince Andrew's nice little scandal there, Pay off his little legal bills for, being a pedophile. So... Ultimately, I think, if the Queen is paying off the legal bills for a man who, likes to hang around with Jeffrey Epstein, I think, that's enough to sort of say you should abolish the monarchy.
Since their house needs fixing, we gave them a raise to pay for it, i.e., we're paying for it. And after all that, this 40 million figure here seems fairly ridiculous. Most estimates I've seen for the true cost of the monarchy are in the low hundreds of millions annually. And I'm being intentionally fuzzy with the figure here because when it comes to this sum, none of what I just said actually matters. Because the real problem here isn't the 40 million in costs, it's the 200 million in, quote, revenue from Crown land. Because
that makes no sense. Just take the land. You could literally... Look, in my country, the head of state gets a house. A house they can use until they are kicked off and someone else takes their place. Then they get a house. They always get a nice fat salary. The point is, ultimately, they don't get consistent income through their entire life, with save a pension. So, but ultimately, what I'm saying is, they don't make money. We don't think they make money. We don't go, oh, look, their house. That's worth a... We gave them that. They have that because we handed it to them. We allow them to take it. So what's the argument there? No. In my country, you get the house after the person leaves. That's what you get. Because we all know, why exactly would you clarify income as the property you gave them?
Because here's the thing. If tomorrow all the royals just evaporated or fell off the earth or something, that land would still exist.
Yeah.
It's not going anywhere, is it? It doesn't need the royals around to be present in our dimension.
Yeah.
You know, it's not tied to their spirit or something. Without a monarch on the throne, all the trees would wither and die or something. No, the land and our ability to do profitable things with it would still be there without the monarchy. A more accurate sum here is £40 million against nothing.
Yeah.
You know, why not kick the royals out and keep 100% of the revenue?
Yeah.
You might ask.
But perhaps that's not enough for you because you're a real greedy geezer. Why not kick the royals out and keep 100% of the revenue? Because it's still their land. King George the Crazy wasn't crazy enough to give up everything, just the profits. But it wasn't.
Take their land. If you abolish the monarchy, you don't let them go off with the land they stole because of their monarchy position. You know? Like in a communist revolution, you don't just let all the rich people go off with all the money. You stop them, you take the money, and if they don't like it, you kill them. That's the point. The point I make, the God Almighty. That's not an argument. You just take it. You know? Like,
It wasn't only him. Every monarch since King George III has voluntarily turned over the profits from their land to the United Kingdom. If the government stopped paying the royal family's living and state expenses, the royals would be forced to take back the profits from their land, and your taxes, dear monarchy haters, would go up.
No, if you abolish the monarchy, you take all of their things. You take all of the wealth they have. The Queen is a millionaire. In the hundreds. Look, imagine Saudi Arabia. If you abolished the Saudi Arabian royal family and took their wealth, you would have billions. Billions. The Queen is worth hundreds of millions. I don't think, for one, she really needs money, does she now? The Queen doesn't need any money for people to give her, okay? No, she doesn't. So, feck that. And also, you just take her wealth? Big shocker. But actually, abolishing the monarchy would actually be an influx of wealth because, you know, they have money. Money they stole from other countries, so maybe you might want to return it, but, you know.
Not down.
So there's a lot going on in this clip. First off, I'd like to note the backing away from the initial question, which was why not kick the royals out, to the much softer scenario of the government simply stopping paying for their expenses.
Yeah.
After which the royals would apparently be forced to stop turning over the revenue from the crown estate.
They're rich. They're very, very, very rich. You know? As I said, Andrew's little mummy, he was able to get a nice fat check to pay off his legal bills. You know, the legal bills for being a predator. Yeah, those legal bills. Yeah, those are the legal bills he had to... Imagine if that happened, you know, if the state was just like, oh, and by the way, you know, all those, you know, this ones, yeah, all those... You know, their legal bills will be paid for by the government. What what is the point then? That's hardly a punishment. You know, imagine if every single time you did something wrong, you were punished for it. But instead of you actually getting the punishment, everybody else did. It's just like, yeah, you did a bad thing. Pay £100, which you won't actually pay, and everybody else will pay.
My first issue with this is that CGP Grey's version of kicking the royals out appears to arbitrarily leave them with all their land and wealth, and also the apparent ability to negotiate from a position of power with the British government. And I have to ask why he's imposing these measures.
Yeah.
You see, although CGP Grey says it's still their land, the Crown Estate is not actually the monarch's private property.
Yeah.
They cannot do with it as they wish. If they were to be able to, quote, take back the revenue from the property overseen by the Crown Estate, this would involve renegotiating the arrangement with the government and coming away with private ownership of everything, which is ludicrous. Although, to be fair, given how the Brexit negotiations are going, maybe it's not. You see, my version of kicking
you can always
the royals out involves confiscating all their stuff.
Me too.
Because it's not really their stuff at the end of the day. They inherited it from someone, who inherited it from someone, etc., who claimed ownership of it by killing everyone who disagreed with them. It wouldn't exactly be kicking the royals out if we left them with sole ownership of huge parts of the country, would it? CGP Grey is basically saying after we abolish the monarchy will then respond by saying etc. And no, after we've abolished the monarchy, they've been abolished. They don't get a turn. This is a particular sort of bad faith argument that I've seen a few times. Let me give you another example. Do you support an increase in green renewable energy? And I imagine most of you would say yes, unless you happen to be oil barons or something. Now, what I'm going to do is fixate on that one opinion of yours and extrapolate from that way more than is logical or necessary. So you support an increase in green energy, which means you support the decrease of the use of fossil fuels. Which means you support the current employees of the fossil fuel industry being made unemployed.
No, you can move their jobs. You've got new jobs. Also, ultimately, you wouldn't need to, you just restructure the economy and boom, you don't have no need for that.
How cruel of you, just before Christmas and everything, you classist monster.
Yeah, funny story. If we keep the fossil fuel things, that person will die very painfully.
And before you can protest that you also support, I don't know, job guarantees for fossil fuel workers or various welfare systems or a universal basic income or something like that, I've already run away with my fingers in my ears saying, la la la, I can't hear you, you classist monster. Now, I'm speaking from experience here because I've had this happen to me. Reality isn't turn-based, however. We can support and do multiple things at the same time. So in this case, my bill to abolish the monarchy would say, we're no longer paying for the royal family's expenses, and also the Crown Estate will henceforth be publicly owned, and also the royals will lose all hereditary positions and powers, and also, if you don't like that, you can go and sit on your crown, which is now ours.
Also, if you really don't like that, just saying, France did it, Russia did it, lots of countries that abolished the monarchies did it. If you really, really want to do it, you can always. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying, if necessary, rich people have power. If necessary, one way to stop that power is just to, you're not getting through that. Anyway, the point I'm making ultimately is that, he's right.
So anyway, that's the land argument dealt with there. Now, the other common response to the argument that the royals cost the country is the tourism argument. Tourists come here just to see the Queen, apparently.
Plus, 160 million is just the easily measurable money the United Kingdom makes from the royal family. Don't forget their huge indirect golden goose, tourists. Annoying though they might be to the locals by blocking the tube and refusing to stand on the right, they dump buckets of money on the UK to see the sights, travel ludicrously short distances by public transport, and
the underground is used by people all the time. Also, those are 2 stations, not like people do go longer than that. I've been in London before, by the way, so trust me, I did not use the underground.
Generally act silly a long way from home. Sure, not everything they come to see is royal, but the most expensive stuff is.
You do know, right? You can kick the royal family out. Like, if I was in France and in Paris and I said Palace Versailles, I wouldn't be like, I'm not paying. No, the royal family aren't in there. I don't care. I like history. I'm going to go there because it had the royal family. I'm going to go there because it's an extravagant palace that has, for some reason, existed. The point I'm making is that you go there because of the history behind it. You go there because it's like that. You don't go there because there's a bunch of rich people inside.
And who are the biggest spenders? The Yanks. After they finish buying maple syrup and cheap pharmaceuticals, Tijuana professional services, and illegal pharmaceuticals, where do they go next? The United Kingdom. Americans fly.
The royal family has jurisdiction over Northern Ireland, Scotland, and Wales because it forced its way into those countries. Please only refer to England as the source of the royal family because they are really, on the end of the day, the only people who, the royal family England is the only country that allowed the royal family to rule, just saying.
Across an ocean to see a land filled with castles that aren't plastic. And why?
There's a land of castles in my country too, so there's a lot of castles. Yeah.
And why do the Americans think France's castles are so boring and stinky and the UK's castles are so awesome? Because real monarchs still use them.
You're kind of implying Americans are sick.
The Tower of London is so stunning to visitors because the royal crest on the yeoman warder's uniform is real. It's not.
What? You do know the Tower of London is no longer used to execute people? Jesus Christ!
A lame historical reenactment or a modern.
It is a historical reenactment. What the
LARPing quest is the embodiment of the living, breathing queen. Everywhere you look, she sprinkled fairy dust on banal objects.
They'd still be there.
Make them magically attractive to tourists, 12 million of whom visit every year, spending £7,000 million, which suddenly makes those direct profits look like rather small change.
I have been to London and the UK multiple times in my life. Okay? Well, not like a few. And not once did I go for the royal family. To be honest, if I saw England abolish the royal family and I had the money, I'd go there more. Because I hate the royal family's position of authority, because they are the reason that my country is kind of in the position it is now. Not the best position. My point is, ultimately, my country's a pretty long history of problems thanks to the royal family. I don't think I'm going to go to England because of them. I hate the royal family's idea of things. And ultimately, my point is, lots of people would go to England on business, okay? Nothing to the royal family. Lots of tourists would go to England, because they want to go to England, not to see the royal family,
So there's a lot to talk about right here. Where to start? So the comparison with France is particularly audacious and cheeky here because, as you might know, France makes a lot more money off tourism than the UK.
Yeah.
In 2017, France was the #1 tourist destination in the world, whereas the United Kingdom was 7th with less than half of the number of individual tourists.
Yeah.
The Palace of Versailles gets vastly more visitors each year than Buckingham Palace. According to a CNN travel report, in 2013, Versailles had over 7 million visitors, and Buckingham Palace had less than 1 million. So,
in fairness, who that wants to see Buckingham Palace? Buckingham Palace is boring. I've never seen Buckingham Palace. Just make you aware. Like I've been by it and I've seen it in like stuff before, but I haven't actually been near it because I was never interested in going to it because, well, it's boring. The Palace of Versailles, however, that's different.
So living monarchs don't seem to be that big of a tourist attraction. So how does CGP Grey get away with this France comparison? Well, he needlessly limits himself to talking about just one group of people that happen to visit the UK more than France, and that's Americans. And there is absolutely no reason to do this except to give the false impression that the UK attracts more visitors than France, when if you consider all tourists, it's not even close. Also, as a little aside here,
in fairness, though, France is warmer. England is not a warm country, so it's not going to attract as many tourists in general. Anyway,
When CGP Grey says, "Why do Americans think France's castles are so boring and stinky, and the UK's castles are so awesome?" he shows pictures of 2 castles. Now, the boring and stinky castle is the fortress of Najac in France, and the awesome castle is Mont Saint Michel in No Prizes for Guessing this one, France. They're both French castles. Well, actually, this one isn't a castle, but whatever. They're both in France. What CGP Grey has done is mix up this place with this place, St. Michael's Mount, which has a similar name and appearance, but is actually in the UK. Now, given that CGP Grey, an American, can't tell the difference between a French castle and an English one, that kind of disproves his point there. Hardy ha, an error was made on the internet. Regardless, tourists don't get a cup of tea and a chat with the Queen or anything when they go to see a royal property.
Yeah.
Whether the royals are around or not doesn't matter. The buildings are still going to be there.
Also, by the way, the royals are generally not even there anyway. It's considered their property, but they're not there. What's the phrase? It's like it's a misconception, I believe. It's like when the flag is flying, the royals aren't there or something. It's like it's interesting. I forget the fact, but I think I did a video on it before. But it's like it's when the flag is flying. I forget what it was, but anyway, the point I'm making is ultimately people go to the Buckingham Palace all the time when the royals aren't even there. So what if they were just permanently not there?
And again, as we've seen, more people go to see France's palaces, and they got all choppy with their monarchs. And that's the thing, even if the actual monarchy was officially abolished, the people, the family, would still exist. They'd still live in the country. If they're meant to be a draw by themselves, there'd be nothing stopping them from being, I'm sure they'd still be invited to events and to open buildings and whatever else. The difference is that they'd have to pay their own way. And I don't even imagine that would be particularly...
No, I'd say a lot of people would donate to them. That's the thing. People in my country love the royal family. It's really weird. It's like, why? No, seriously, why? But what I'm saying is people would donate to them.
Difficult for them. They'd still be a celebrity family regardless of official status. And I imagine there'd be a lot of monarchists around who'd be willing to send them their money.
Yeah.
Maybe they could do a GoFundMe or something. To sum up here, without the monarchy, the land would still exist, the royal estates would still exist, and the people who are currently the royals would still exist.
Yeah.
All that would change is that our government would stop funneling millions of pounds into the pockets of one particular, already rich family. Now, what else haven't I mentioned here? Well, very quickly, CGP Grey gives the impression that the royals turn over the income from all of their lands, but this isn't actually true. The duchies of Lancaster and Cornwall are administered separately from the Crown estate, and the royals don't have to turn over the revenue from those, and they're not subject to tax. The royals voluntarily, how nice of them, pay income tax on the income generated by the duchies, less official expenditures, of course. However, they remain exempt from corporation tax. The duchies have been valued together at more than £1 billion, and this is, of course, not mentioned by CGP Grey. That's about it from me today, folks. That's a short one, isn't it, from me? I usually make longer videos than this, but to be honest, I just needed to get this one out of my system. If you're desperate for more content, I have a little announcement to make. Today is the 2-year anniversary of me joining Patreon. Patreon. And I thought I'd do a little something fun and special for all my backers over there. But then I couldn't think of anything, so I waffled into a microphone about YouTube for 20 minutes. So if you'd like to hear me talking a bunch of nonsense for a while, head over there and take a look. Right. Remember to like and subscribe and all that, and follow me on Twitter or ask me a question on CuriousCast if you fancy. Brackets, links below. Righty-ho, folks. See you next time.
Yeah, so just pop that in there. Very good video. And so do go ahead, subscribe to Shaun, and if you want to watch the original video, please do click the link in the description. Go ahead and look at his channel, got some very good videos there. And ultimately I'll just say this, not necessarily against CGP Grey, but, however, their opinions of the monarchy, hopefully they've changed since then, because if not, that's a bad argument. Anyway, thank you for watching.